Game design versus game development. This is a big issue. We have spoken about this uh, personally previously. What's your take? The difference between game design versus game development?
I mean, game design is a specific field. You sort of need to. It's a specific field as programming or art is. There are further specifications and unique positions in it, but it's that field. Whereas the development is a collection of those people, of those roles, or people performing multiple roles. That would be my big picture definition.
Fair enough. Yeah. So yeah, I think one of the challenges that I see is that I see a lot of people like right at the moment. On a positive, I mean, there. I don't think I've ever seen so many games being developed, and I think you've got a lot of really new developers who are maybe getting in there. And this is particularly, I think it's particularly since Unreal Engine 5 came out, so a couple of years ago. Um, and for some reason, Unreal Engine 5 just took off, like just completely took off. And it's given, some very high level technical tools available for free for pretty much anyone. Anyone who's on the internet wants to download it can actually have access to Unreal Engine 5. And we've got a lot of games coming out. I think I was watching a video from Chris. Is it Pavlovsky? I always get his surname wrong. But from how to market a game, and he was sort of saying that a lot of the games that are coming out, although they might be technically decent, are kind of just not very good. And I think really, even though a lot of the new developers, particularly, are learning how to develop a game, you're not getting much in the way of understanding the sort of design process to actually make a good game. So you go and have a look at a lot of the games out there, and they tend to be kind of cookie cutter games in a way. They might have something unique, but there's so much competition out there right at the moment, and the focus has been very much on how to develop your games, but not very much on how to design something that's kind of a winner. So I see those as quite separate, and I don't know that a lot of people in the sort of game development community, particularly the newer ones, actually differentiate between whole game design and game development. So I guess that's
Yeah.
my kind of take.
Yeah, I guess in that context, I can see the concern that with the sort of barrier to entry being lowered with the release of tools like Unreal Engine 5, um, more people are being able to, fulfill the programming requirements to make a game.
Yeah.
And maybe there is, yeah, this misunderstanding of what a game designer is,
Hmm.
and sort of an assumption that if you are developing a game, you automatically become a game designer,
Mm-hmm.
which I think can uh, disincentivize the need to spend time applying a design framework to the game to actually produce something, um, or to really improve and hone the game that you're making.
Yeah.
If you skip over those steps, then you will have a game at the end, but you know, you might be lacking a lot of things that really elevate it or push it further.
Yeah. I mean, I'm seeing a lot of, in fact, in the game design and on Reddit, game design, game development subreddits, it's kind of interesting to see how many posts there are, sort of saying, "Hey, I just finished my first game. I thought it was really good, and no one bought it." And you go and have a look, and I was like, "Well, yeah. I mean, there's a thousand other games out there, even more, that look exactly like your game. I mean, what's so special about your game?" So this is one of the challenges I think we face.
And I
Um,
think
yeah.
it's it's not a bad thing. Like more game, well, if you're making games, you're getting experience, but it feels like you're missing out a whole section that could, teach you more, get you more experience, and make the final product better. And so
Yes. Yeah.
it's like, don't. Yeah, I guess the point is don't neglect what game design means, because you're not doing yourself that favor.
And there's also, I think there's not a lot of people think. In fact, one of those posts that we just looked at, game design is only like the design of the code. Like there's initially, a lot of programmers are doing game development, understandably, and because they come from a programming background, and in fact, the first 3D games were from Doom and was it Wolfenstein 3D? I mean, obviously, the guys who created those were hardcore coders. They were not designers. They were not who you would sort of consider to be designers. And so you've all still at the moment you've got a lot of people coming in from a coding background and saying, oh, it's just it's coding. That's what game design is. And this is one of the things I've been sort of fighting probably all my life, really. That hang on, game design is not about program design. It's not about coding. There's more to it, and but even then, sort of other people will say that game design is the design of gameplay / mechanics, and that's it. And I've seen there's in the sort of academic world there's a very well known book which makes that claim, and I think that's incorrect as well. That's not really what design is about, or game design is about. We did talk about this last week, so do you have any other thoughts?
I guess I wonder how much the sort of barrier to entry for programming was lowered by these new tools.
Oh yeah,
And
huge,
so,
huge.
like you can put out a game now
Mm.
with some really like anything I put out, if I'm programming it, the code is going to be a nightmare, but it'll run because we have tools that are advanced enough and computers that are powerful enough to manage that.
Yeah,
But I don't see a similar thing happening with design,
yeah. No, that's true.
There's really no um, workarounds or shortcuts to it. It's
Mm.
you kind of need to spend that time designing or get really, really lucky. Is sort of the two
Yeah.
options.
Yeah. And don't forget as well, like we have talked. Game design is the design of player experiences, and a lot of people, my students coming into game design and development, don't really think about that so much. They think about just building the game, but they're not necessarily focused on what the player is going to be experiencing, and that's a big deal. And not everyone is cut out to do that either. The player experiences are, I guess, very subjective, very woolly. So you've got to be comfortable being in the sort of subjective, maybe touchy-feely, emotional kind of space. And a lot of people are not, particularly a lot of sort of developer types, are more comfortable with the sort of black and white coding. It's got to be, this, that, and the other. So, not everyone, I think, is cut out. In the same way, not everyone's cut out to be a programmer. Not everyone's cut out to be a designer either. There are particular skills that you got to have.
And I think having this space for it as well, right? Like, as a designer, it would be extremely beneficial to work on your own sort of routines and practices to be able to get yourself into that state where you're able to sort of design empathetically and think about the player and resonate emotionally to come up to really focus on the player experience. But
Yeah.
also even just making sure that time is set aside in your scope so that you're not getting overwhelmed with, okay, well, this task has to be done, and then time to think about the player experience just gets lost because we can just make it work.
That's the wrong way around. Yeah, that's designing the wrong way around. You should be thinking really about, number one, what the player experience is, and then, tweaking your code to get that particular experience or as close to that experience, as you possibly can. Cool. So there we go. Game design versus game development.